Captain Mark J. Reinhardt isn't just sailing, he's rewriting the script on what it means to live free. Right now, he's deep in the Solomon Islands aboard his beloved sailboat, Pampero, making his way around the world one ocean at a time. He's the author of Off the Grid: How I Quit the Rat Race and Lived for Free Aboard a Sailboat. A no fluff, real talk dive into walking away from the grind and building a life powered by wind, guts, and purpose. If you've ever daydreamed about ditching the noise and chasing something real, this one's for you. He's got stories, he's got scars, he's got salt in his blood, and zero regrets. But first, do me a solid. Tap that like, hit subscribe, and share this with someone who dreams bigger than their cubicle. Every click helps keep this channel stay alive and sailing strong. I'm Captain Tinsley of Sailing Vessel Salty Abandon, a 1998 Island Packet 320 sailboat, and this is the Salty Podcast, episode 59. Welcome, Captain Mark. I'm calling you Mike. I'm sorry about that.
Hello.
Hey, what's happening, Mark? How are you?
I'm doing good.
You
Just
got a good looking, looks like you got a studio there. That's a good looking studio you got there.
yeah, I'm trying to put my book off the grid on audio. So I before I took off, I got all this equipment. So when I was sitting next to some island, I could just do my audio book.
That's perfect. I do love it when the author reads. I like to listen to audiobooks on the boat. So I'm going to, when's that coming out with the audio?
I'm not sure. I got about halfway through it, and one of my stories is one of the reasons my book off the grid is a little bit inspirational is, I have learning disabilities like a lot do, and struggle to get through school, and I never actually read a book in my life, and I wrote a book. So that was my premise: is what's holding you back from achieving your goals? If I can do that, and so actually reading it for audiobook has been quite challenging, and yeah, I was sitting in Tonga, beautiful environment. People always ask me, "What's your favorite place?" Well, it started out the Sandblast Islands, and then I went to Tonga. Now it's kind of back and forth between Tonga and Fiji, but still, I think Tonga is the best. It's just so beautiful. The water's deep and mountains coming right up out. I mean, you could literally run into a mountain and it'd be 160 feet under your keel. It's
Wow.
just a beautiful spot. And I just found some spots to anchor and just got into my zone and started doing the audiobook. But I haven't. It's been put on hold for now. I might get back into it when I get to the Philippines.
Well, I do like to, that's my favorite way to listen, especially on the boat. I don't like to read. I like to listen. So I can, you know, look around and pay attention to what I'm doing.
Absolutely, I love audiobooks. I got a whole library full of audiobooks because I don't read. So yeah.
So tell us where you're from.
I grew up in Orlando on a little lake, Lake Conway. I got my first boat, or as an old timer told me, on the Rio Dolce. I asked him how long he'd been sailing. He says, "I think I fell off my first boat about 6 years old." So I kind of like to adopt that story. So I probably fell off my first boat about 10 years old. It
Yeah.
was just a rowboat. It was just a rowboat. I don't equate my sailing history to being started when I was 10, but not by any stretch of the imagination. But I grew up on boats. So, we had um, bow riders and fishing boats and ski boats. And so almost my whole life, I've owned a boat of some kind, not always a sailboat. Then I got into, thought I'd sail around the world when I was 30, and I bought a 41 Morgan. Didn't know anything about big sailboats. I'd been a windsurfer and had a Hobie Cat, that kind of stuff. But I didn't know anything about big boats, and there's so many different big boats. I saw a bunch of 41 Morgans on the market, so I thought, well, at least I can get the best 41 Morgan for the dollar because I can compare apples to apples. So I ended up with a 41 Morgan and took off to sail to around the world at 30 years old with hardly any money, no experience, and just a big dream. And I made it to St. Thomas, where I got rooted in for 4 years, and then ended up selling the boat and raising a family. So that's why I'm gun shy of women nowadays, because you get a boat, you get a woman, the boat goes away. It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily have to be that way. I know that, but
No, but yeah, from my experience of being out there sailing, I see a lot of guys alone on boats, and they're like, "God, I wish I could find somebody to that
yeah,
seems
they
the
all
way."
love it. They all love the dream, and they love the idea of the dream, and they love sailing off into the sunset. Well, the next morning is the sunrise, and then there's more shit that happens. Sorry
Yeah,
for the, but yeah, it's
you mean like broken things?
broken things and challenging situations and close quarters and creature comforts are pretty much gone. You know, you're I call it camping out on the water. You know, it's definitely, but the plus is I'm living in, I've sailed 10,000 miles in the last 2.5 years, seen more places than most people ever will. And I would have to have a job if I lived on land. You know,
Right.
I couldn't support my life. I couldn't support a house and a car and insurance and all that crap living on land. But on a sailboat, now I got a lot of crap when I wrote my first book off the grid because I said live for free on a sailboat. Some guy goes, "Yeah, well, you can live for free under an overpass, but what kind of life do you have?" And
Right.
you can't live for free on a sailboat. Let me just the editor
No.
wrote that part, and and it's the ongoing. There's a little guy canoeing by. Um, the the ongoing expense of insurance and for cars and gasoline and the rat race and electric for your house and all that crap, mortgages and taxes and all that crap you don't have on a boat, but you still have maintenance fee costs. I don't go to marinas. I can't afford marinas. I couldn't live this lifestyle and go stay in a marina, and I hate marinas. To me, if you're in a marina, you're like in a trailer park on your boat, because your boat is not much more in the trailer. And when you put it in a marina, you're no longer facing the wind. You're facing whatever direction that dock is in. And sailboats are great because you open the hatches, the breezes come through, and you're right now. Don't want to pick the laptop up because I might lose us, but you know there's nothing better than this environment. There's nobody. I don't have a neighbor. There aren't people walking by. Not that I'm anti-people, but you know, it's much more freeing. I don't know if I went around in circles on that statement, but it's more freeing. I'm getting ready to. I'll probably spend a year in the Philippines with the boat out of the water. I'll be doing some work on it there, and
Can you hear me again?
yes, I can. I think you're back on the regular computer now.
What's the deal? What a nightmare.
Well, I'll just keep talking because I think everybody's still there and she's fading in and out for some reason. I thought I'd be the one that had the technical problems because I'm not that. I'm a little technically challenged, and I had Tom Wargo that helped me through all this stuff before. But,
This is my 59th episode, and I've had a couple of glitches, but this is crazy. Like my camera just quit. My expensive HD camera just quit. So I'm using my phone camera.
well, welcome to my world. Maybe it's one on this podcast.
So we're gonna I've got it up on the computer so I can at least see all the people that are coming in. So Greg Skelton,
Yep.
I guess you
Greg.
know some of these people.
Yep.
Uh, that's Greg Skelton. I know Mischief Maker was here last week. Let's see, we've got some other people over on Instagram, which I have to pull back up. But okay, so tell me, you started in Orlando, and go back to that story.
All right. So I ended up in St. Thomas, and then I ended up getting married. Um, had 2 kids, raised family. My life was motocross for about 10 years. I I raced roundy round cars when I was really young, and I knew that if I ever owned a business, I had to quit racing because when you race it, you're an addict. Everything goes into your car. Everything you make goes into your car. You live for racing Friday night. You work on the car all week long. So I said, no more racing. I didn't realize when I bought my son, when he was 4.5 years old, a little PW50, that I was getting back into racing. I thought I was just buying him a motorcycle for us to go have fun on. Well, that turned into a full blown motocross career that my son was in from the time he was 5 until he was 14. We traveled all over the United States and raced motorcycles, and it was just an awesome life. My kid wouldn't have ever wanted to spend that much time with me if he wasn't racing. He wanted to go to the track, and I was the one taking him. So that I wouldn't trade that off for anything. So that was another era of my life. And then after that, 2008, I'd flipped some properties. I opened a bar. The bar was successful for the first year, and then 2008 hit and the economy crashed, and then I just barely held on to everything for the next 3 or 4 years. And then after the bar went downhill, I basically was flat on my butt with nothing, and I took off for Colorado for a ski season. I always wanted to be a ski bum, so I went out there and got a job as a dishwasher. And that was a humbling experience. I went from entrepreneur restaurant owner where everybody wants to know your name to freaking guy washing dishes. And if I ever told anybody I owned a restaurant, they just look at me like, yeah, sure, you're an old bum washing dishes. There's a restaurant. I'm sure you owned a restaurant. But anyway, so that was quite humbling. So I skied for a season, and then I came back, and I thought to myself, I was staying with some friends, and I couldn't even buy a job back then. And that time when the economy was so bad, there was nothing available. So I ended up, I thought, I wonder if I can walk to Key West. So I got a backpack. I started hiking down the road with a tent, and I'd walk down the coast, and at nighttime I had a little chair. I'd go out and sit and watch the sunset, and I'd already had scoped out where I was going to put my tent for the night, because you couldn't do it in the day. You know, they'd come arrest you or make you run you off. So as soon as it started to get dark, I'd go hide up in the mangoes and put my tent up. I ended up doing that, and I made it about 350 miles, and then I suffered an injury from walking. I had this intense pain in my leg, and I searched the internet and said one of the reasons for that is excessive walking. I'm like, bingo, that's it. So anyway,
the end of the walking.
that was the end of the walking, but it was my aha moment in life when I realized I did not want to chase success anymore. You know, I've owned like 10 different businesses, not all big successful or anything, but they always supported me, and I was always chasing that success. I had to be successful. I guess that was something inside me that just I wanted to be great or something. I don't know. But so in that moment, I decided I don't want to do this anymore. I want to travel. But how can I travel and not walk? And I was walking through Stewart at the time, and I thought, Mark, man, you're so stubborn. Get another boat, you know. And it just like all of a sudden hit me, get a boat. So
that's a good place in Stewart to be looking at sailboats.
Yeah, yeah. So at first I thought I'll just get a rowboat, you know, put a little tent on it or something. And I was almost broke. I still owned a house, and that my kids were living in, and the wife got remarried, so I got the house back. So I put it up for sale, and I made enough money to buy another sailboat. It was a major fixer-upper. It wasn't anything massive, but I bought that, fixed it up, and went to the Bahamas and wrote the book Off the Grid. And that's what really developed my mindset to living this lifestyle. And then there's a whole nother chain of events that happened. I lost my boat in Hurricane Irma.
Oh yeah,
got wiped out. And then through the grace of God, someone stepped
where
up.
were you? Were you in the Keys during Irma?
Yeah, I was in Key West. I actually got hired. It wasn't supposed to hit the Keys, and I got hired to move a guy's boat up in Fort Lauderdale. And so I left, and soon after I left, Irma turned and head straight towards Key West. And at that time, all roads out of Key West were one way. I couldn't even turn around if I wanted to. So that made that decision for me. This is what I'm going to do. And but I lost the boat, and a gentleman. This is a story itself that I don't want to get into right now, but it's in my second book. I guess I'm plugging the second book.
Tell
But
it.
I'll tell you a portion of it. The guy bought me Pampero. He just didn't even know me. He read my book off the grid, and he said he wanted to learn how to sail. He wanted some adventure in his life, and wondered if I would teach him how to sail, and he was going to buy a boat. So I looked at 4 or 5 boats for him, and on the last one we looked at, Pampero, he bought it. We went out to dinner that night, and he says, "Well, I'm gonna put this boat in your name." I said, "Well, obviously you have means I don't. You don't want me doing something with it that would cause you financial burden." He goes, "No, you don't understand. I'm giving you this boat." And I'm like, "What?"
What?
Yeah, and that really turned my life around, because Pampero is the boat that can be used for charter. I went into charter business after that. I went into Airbnb in Pampero, and it really changed my financial situation, and then I was in Key West for the next 5 years, you know, running
Where?
Pampero.
Where in Key West?
I was right in the off of Fleming Key, anchored right near right near the.
Okay.
So
Okay. You were in the anchor. You were anchoring, not mooring.
Yeah, I wasn't in the mooring field. I was anchored off, and
Okay.
I ended up starting a water taxi business, running people around and running people out to Airbnbs, and that's really what turned the whole thing around, was getting this boat, which allowed me to generate income in order to get me to the point where I am now. And then I did Boy Scouts with the boat. I did 3 or 4 seasons of Scouts, where you do 12 trips in a row with 6 Scouts for a week, just in and out, in and out, in and out for 3 months, which was pretty rewarding.
Hey, Mark, you got a bunch of fans backstage. You got a lot of women following you. Oh no, here's a dude.
All right.
Let me
I
just bring
know.
him up. Like,
I don't understand that.
Mark accidentally gave out the link to come into the studio, so I'm just gonna pull up some people here real quick so we can see.
Sorry, guys. I gave you the wrong. I gave you the wrong thing. My alarm went off. The time was wrong, but I'm glad I straightened
Look
that
at
out.
this.
Look at all
He
these
must
guys.
be hosting it.
Right.
Yeah.
If you could read out their names, because I can't see their names and barely see their faces. But
I got
welcome
Lisa
aboard, guys.
Ford, Susan
Hey,
Ives
Lisa.
Ward.
All right, let me talk to Lisa for a second.
Okay.
Lisa, her brother was my first friend that moved away when I was like 7th grade, and then through Facebook we reconnected. And Lisa's been great. She's a woman of common sense, and she always puts good stuff on my Facebook. Hey, Lisa.
Well, you also got Susan Ives Ward, and because I'm
Susan Ivy, she's was my online editor when my spelling and grammar so bad, she would check things out for me before I put them out there, and she's been a great help.
Okay,
Hey, Susan.
Hey,
we got
sound good.
Natalie, we got Lance.
Lance, okay, you got to turn Lance's mic off. Lance is going to say something that's going to embarrass all of us. He's freaking awesome, buddy. Love him like a brother. And Lisa.
Oh, nice. Shout out.
What's up, guys?
You got a lot of fans. All right, I got to pull y'all off now.
Hey, Mark. Hey, now.
Hello. Hey, now.
Hey, now.
Hey, Mark.
If y'all want to say something, now's the time.
I love you, buddy.
Love you too, Mark. Be safe.
Love you guys. Be good.
Seasoning
Where are y'all
soon
from?
comes.
Real, before I pull you off, where are y'all from? All of
Brevard
you.
County, Florida.
Okay.
Orlando, Florida.
All right.
North Carolina.
Woohoo.
Mark,
Lovely.
New
seasoning
Beach.
soon come.
Where?
Seasoning soon come.
Yeah.
I'm pulling y'all off now.
As they saying, be we. Seasonings soon come.
Oh yeah, I think that's a Jimmy Buffett song.
All right.
All
Mark.
right.
See ya. Yeah, sorry guys, I made a mistake and sent you the wrong link. You guys
That's
got the
fun. We're having
PDF.
some fun with it, though. We're having some fun.
That's good.
What's one thing that land people, land lovers, totally misunderstand about the lifestyle you're living?
Well, first and foremost, it's like camping out. You know, if you don't like going camping, the only thing is you don't get dirt. You know, when you camp out, you're usually in the dirt. But it's a lot like camping out, unless you got a $1 million yacht, which I don't have. And even
Yeah.
then, you're camping out. I mean, if you got anything less than a 40-foot, you're in a little camper, you know. And so that's one thing you gotta get used to. You gotta, you have to be a miser. And excuse me, it's not because of money, it's because of resources that are available to you.
Yeah.
Your water. When the scouts came on board, I used to tell them, I said, hey, listen, you don't turn the water on and start brushing your teeth and let the water run until you're done brushing your teeth like you do in the house. I mean, you have to be, they call me the water Nazi, because I'll be laying in my bunk and I'll hear that pump turn on, brrr, and they could be filling a water jug, but it sounds like they're just taking a shower and letting it run forever. And I jump up and I go, water conservation, And so water is a biggie, and then it's other things too. It's not just water. I mean, propane.
Yeah.
I've learned to make ramen noodles by heating the water up, put the noodles in there, and let it sit on the counter for a half hour, and not even cook them the whole way. And then they hydrate and they're perfect. Because where am I going to get propane? There's no propane out here. It's not because you're being a miser and cheap. It's because when you run out of your resource, you can't just replenish it. So you have to really, there's no laundry machine, there's no dishwasher. My shirt I hang on the rail, and I hope it rains because that means it gets washed. And then it's amazing how you hang a shirt on the rail for a week, it smells better than it did when you took it off. So you learn all these little things that people don't realize, and you just can't even imagine doing something like that if you were living in a house. You just throw it in a clothes hamper and then dump it all in the laundry machine and then run the washer water. But you don't do that on boats. Some boats, if you have $1 million boat, might have a washer and a water maker.
They do.
I was fortunate for the last 3 years to have a water maker, but even then, it takes power to run your water maker. And I'm all solar, so I can make 15 gallons an hour, but it takes a lot of battery juice to do that. And then through my crossing, my water maker went out. And so I haven't had a water maker for about 6 months, but luckily it's been raining like crazy and I have a rain catch on the boat. So I always have water. My first go around in my 30s, I didn't have a water maker and I was always hauling a 5-gallon jug out of my boat. And I said I'd never do that again. So right now I'm pretty set with water maker.
Mary Carol Tobias says you clean up good, Mark.
Yeah, I went on Facebook Live without a clean shirt on because I said, "Hey guys, don't get shocked because I'm gonna put a shirt on for this."
Gee, it's like a button-down shirt, long sleeve, and everything.
Yeah, this shirt was hanging behind my the head door there. It was hanging back there, so it was nice and clean and almost looked pressed. And I was like, "Oh, bingo! Look at there."
Is that your one good shirt that you keep on board?
I have two. I have this one and I have a black one. So yeah. I will tell you something I learned that is amazing. It's not Lysol brand, it's just a spray bottle. But in the islands, there seemed to be an abundance of flies. And if you just take dish soap and water,
Yeah.
for some reason it kills flies.
No.
Yeah, and you don't have to, the fly can be laying on your leg and you can spray it. You're not worrying about putting chemicals on you like you would if it was some kind of fly spray, and that's how I keep the fly population when they come on board, is I just spray them with this soapy water, and they freaking.
That's it. You heard it here on the Salty Podcast. That's the tip of the day right there.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. I don't know why everybody doesn't do that, because it definitely, sometimes I have to hit them twice if they're a big fly, but it's amazing. I've used a whole bunch of, at first I thought it was a certain type of dish soap I was using, but I've used 2 or 3 different kinds since then, and it always works.
Yeah, I've noticed certain times all of a sudden it just seems like the boat fills up with these big black flies. And I'm not sure where they come from. And they're hard to get rid of.
I said this in the Bahamas. The first time I said it was I'm in the Bahamas, off an island, and I'm let's see, I think I was on the windward side of the island, and I'm cooking hamburgers. No, I was on the lee side of the island. So I'm cooking hamburgers. Why wouldn't I be on the lee side? But anyways, I'm cooking a hamburger, and all of a sudden flies come here, and I'm like going, all right, we're downwind from this island, a half a mile away, and these flies are smelling this hamburger. I mean, what the heck? They're just they hover in on stuff like that. So yeah,
Well,
it's
yeah,
yeah.
it's dim bastards bite too, Bruce Williams says. Yeah. Or when you're in the Keys, well, I'm in the anchor in the Everglades. What and really if you're in Marco or any of these places, what happens at sunset and sunrise?
Yeah, the no-see-ums and mosquitoes, man.
Fierce.
I know you probably can't see it on mine. Let me see if I can turn this a little bit. Right there, is my mosquito net. So I have I sleep. Oh, sorry about that. So I sleep in the cockpit most of the time, even
Okay.
underway. I can't stand to be down below when I'm sailing by myself underway. When I go to sleep, I sleep like a dead body, and when you're a solo sailor, you need to be more in tune. So if I sleep in the cockpit, I can hear the wind changes. My AIS alarm is right there; it'll always wake me up, and so I sleep right here in the cockpit and use that mosquito net. I put it over top of me, and if I'm in Anchorage, it works out well.
Yeah. Do you need it when you're underway? I mean,
Yeah, I use not when I'm cruising, and I only put it up in Fiji. I hadn't used it ever until then, because usually.
uh-oh. I think he froze up this time. Woohoo. Oh no. We'll give him a minute. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I'm back. I just
Okay.
realized my Starlink dropped the feed, and now
Oh,
I'm back.
okay. Okay. It happens. So
Yeah.
how big is that? I'm just curious, how big is that mosquito net?
It's pretty good size. I got a rope running across the top, and it'll go. I run it. It goes underneath my cushion in the front. It goes underneath the cushion behind me, so it's not actually sitting up or anything. So it works out well.
That's
I
cool.
think every sailor, after me using this thing, I don't think I'll ever be without a mosquito net. I've even used it down below, tied to my hatch above, and yeah.
Okay.
But mosquitoes, as you probably know, they're usually not a big deal unless you're in some little harbor, in inland, or you know.
Bruce says, show us the bug spray one more time. Because he doesn't know it's the Lysol.
all it is,
There it
is a
is.
spray bottle. And what I like about, for some reason, flies land on me, maybe because I'm a solo sailor and I only shower once a week. No, but I shouldn't tell people that. But I did shower for this podcast. But I
Ah,
gotta tell you, I gotta tell you the truth. I didn't put deodorant on because I figured you couldn't smell me anyways.
We can't. No, you
But
look good. That's important. That's the important part. You look good.
well, the
So,
cool thing is, if fly lands on you, you just you can spray your leg and it's not gonna do anything.
right. Yeah,
I
I'm
think
like you. I sail solo a lot most of the time, and I just sleep right there in the cockpit, and I must wake up every 15 minutes or 10 minutes and check, make sure I'm still on track, and look around, make sure nothing's going on, and then I just
Yeah.
go back to sleep.
Yeah, I do a couple things. One, I set my alarm for 2 hours if I think I'm really tired. I usually do the same thing. I'll wake up every so often, but if I'm really exhausted, if I had a challenging day, I will set my alarm for 2 hours. And another thing I've learned is if there's an island, even if it's 10 miles away, I steer to the left or the right of it. So if I don't
Smart.
wake up in time, I don't run into the island because the first time I ever soloed by myself and fell asleep, I'd sailed to Guatemala, which was about 1,200 miles. And when I hit the English Channel that runs along in front of Belize and goes up to the Rio, I all of a sudden I'm in this peaceful, beautiful, beam reach sail, no waves because I'm on the inside of the reef, and the channel is about 5 miles wide, and I had like 30 miles to go, but it was at the end of my trip and I was exhausted, and I fell asleep during midday and slept for 5 hours straight. And
Wow.
when I woke up, I went, "Holy crap!" You
Were you
know.
on the beach? Did you you woke up
No,
on the
no.
beach?
Luckily, I hadn't hit my destination yet. I still had another, 10 miles to go. But that's when I said, well, I'm afraid if I fall asleep, I'll run in. So that's when I learned to take my course and take it off of. So if I was asleep, I'd pass my island and not run into it. So
So Bruce says, talk my brother into sailing adventure this Sunday, Bay St. Louis to Bon Bauca? I don't know where
Boca
that is,
Grande,
Bruce. Do you?
Boca Grande.
Well,
Oh,
that doesn't say that. It says Bon
oh,
Fouca. So maybe tell us what you mean, Bruce. So tell us where did you start this trip? You got the boat in, I think, did you say you got this boat in the Keys?
yeah, in 2016, but so I had it for quite a while. But I went
Yeah.
to, I actually was at anchor one night right before the last Boy Scout season, and a guy hit me on a center console, doing about 40 miles an hour. He went up and over the back end of my boat and just crushed the back quarter of my swim steps, and I, I I rigged it so I could finish up the Boy Scout season. But then before I took off on my trip, I sailed up to Titusville and we hauled the boat out of the water, and we were doing the repairs before I took off. This was right before I took off on my trip. And something happened. I don't know what happened to this day. I fell off the back of the boat about 7 feet off the ground, and I cracked 6 ribs and broke my collarbone. And I still, to this day, all I remember was at one point feeling a breeze going by me, and that was me gaining speed, falling off the back of the boat. And so I was in the hospital for a couple of days. So that's how I ended up starting my trip. I healed, finished the boat up, and then took off with 6 broken ribs. And that was in November, 2.5 years ago.
Okay, so you left. Where did you leave? You left
I'm
from.
sorry, Titusville, Florida.
Okay. Is that East
That's
Coast?
Yeah, it's directly east of Orlando. It's where the rockets go up, Cape Canaveral.
Okay. All right. And so where did you go?
Sailed down the coast and went to. I sailed all the way down. I think we took off out of Jupiter and crossed over the Bahamas. Did the Bahamas, and then um, from there to St. Thomas. I'm just going to make a fast forward through all this, but sailed from there to St. Thomas, and then went from St. Thomas all the way down island to Grenada, where I island hopped all the way back because I always wanted to do Caribbean chain of islands. It's not really
Right.
a sail the world thing, but I always wanted to do this. So I went down to Grenada, sailed all the way back up to St. Thomas, and timed it so I could do another Boy Scout season and put money in the sailing kitty. So
So
they have
when you say the Boy Scout, because I've known captains that do that in the Keys.
yeah.
So when did you do that? Sorry to backtrack.
In the summers. I did it for 3 or 4 summers. It was June, July, and August. So
What
I
year?
left in November. The last Boy Scout season was probably 2 years ago.
Okay.
So
Okay.
in my leaving and sailing around the world, I stopped back in St. Thomas and did 3 months of Boy Scouts before I took off. And I went from St. Thomas to Puerto Rico to Dominican Republic to Jamaica, down to the Sandblast Islands. I picked up 2
Yeah.
girl crew members in St. Thomas, and they jumped ship in Puerto Rico. No, they jumped
Oh,
ship. No, they jumped ship in Dominican Republic. I think they thought they were going to go on a sailing charter and be catered to, and that's not how I roll.
no, they had to work. Did they have to
Yeah,
cook and stuff?
yeah. They complained that the dishes were dirty. I'm like, wash them.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it was bad. It was bad. So I want to plug my second book here. My second book I wrote from the time I got this boat, the amazing journey that got me this boat, and then built it and all that. And then it's also a lot of my book is the crew members I picked up for the first year, which in turn made me a solo sailor because I don't want to deal with them anymore. I've had some great crews. So anybody that's been my crew that were awesome, you know, you guys are great. The ones that weren't awesome, I'm sure they're not listening. So I don't have to worry
You
about.
know,
So
I
I feel,
prefer it. I like being by myself on the
yeah.
in the past, Bruce, I'm up for anything. Well, let's do it. I'm a very good galley hand. Bruce, are you asking me I should go sail with him, or are you asking me I go sail with you?
He's wanting to jump on a boat and help
Yeah,
out.
I guess so.
You know, the problem with me picking up crew now is my journeys are so long. You know, before in the Caribbean, I could pick you up and you could stay on the boat a week, a month, 6 weeks, and there was another island with an airport you could jump on or
Right.
jump off. But now it's not like that. I mean, we're married. You come on the boat, you're on the boat for 6 weeks. If we don't get along, it's going to be a long 6 weeks.
And you have to really want to be there to make a 6-week passage or a 4-week passage.
Yeah.
You got to really want to be there. It's not for everybody. So tell us about the, well, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. All right. Where did you go after that you went through the Panama Canal?
Yeah, so after the Sandblast Islands, I well, first off, I picked up a crew member in Dominican Republic, and this guy he spoke no English. He was Ukrainian or Russian, and I was like, man, and he spoke Spanish. And at the time, I had
Oh,
the 2 girls on board, and I thought, well, these girls speak Spanish. These guys are going to be talking the whole time, and I don't know what they're saying. I didn't want that situation either. You know, I've been in those situations. And so I told him no, and he persisted. He says, man, once I meet you, we're communicating through Facebook. Once I meet you, we'll be fine. I'm a hard worker, blah, blah, blah. And then finally I said, all right. So he came to the boat. To this day, he was the best mate I ever had. He was so awesome. He treated me like a king. He cooked all my meals for me.
wow.
He loved plate presentation, and Alex is his name, and he was just awesome, and he spoke very little English. And at one time when we were crossing from Jamaica to the Sandblast Islands, about a 500-mile run, we get to the Sandblast Islands, and my tracks all blew out of my freaking main. The tracks just ripped right out of the main. And so I couldn't control the boat because now my main is up there like a spinnaker, you know, it's just collecting wind. And I'm like, Alex, And he tells the story. Yeah, I was dead asleep. Next thing I know, I hear my name. Next thing I know it, I'm standing on top of the hard top. He was up top. He tried collecting the sail, but he told me to turn the boat so he could collect it. And when he did, it caught wind and threw him off the top of the boat. He landed on a stanchion on the side of the boat, snapped the stanchion in half, and just so lucky he didn't break a bone or this, that, or the other. And so, anyways, he got back on the boat, and I said, Alex, what happened? He goes, I don't know. 1 minute I'm doing this, and the next thing I know it's bye bye, Alex.
He didn't have
So,
one hand on the boat, did he?
hey, how you doing? I'm on a call right now. Nice to see
So
you.
I do have a question over here on Instagram. What's the name of the second book?
First off the grid, so I think I'm gonna someone I had a temporary editor and she suggested this and I like it, so I think I'm gonna name it Off the Grid Still.
Oh,
So
okay. Off the grid still. Okay, cool.
I'm hoping it'll be out. I just sent the message to the editor a couple days ago to say I'm ready to go full on, get it published. So I'm hoping last Off the Grid, just for some reason we didn't plan it this way. It came out on my birthday, June 12th, 2016. So I'm thinking maybe the stars will align and it'll come out on June 12th this year too. So that'd be cool.
Oh, you broke up when you said the year. What time? What year did that come out?
The first one came out 2016 on my birthday.
Okay.
We didn't even plan it. It's just you look at it, it says published June 12th. I'm like, oh, that's cool. So maybe this one will come out at the same time.
Well, I've got a link in the description for YouTube and Facebook for the book. So if somebody wants to click on the
Cool.
link down there, it'll take them to Amazon. So Off the Grid, if you want to order the book, if you want to get the Kindle, you want to get the paperback, use my link, please.
Please
And
do.
if you would, Mark, if you'd ask all your people here to subscribe to my channel, whatever
Please,
platform they're watching.
yeah, please subscribe to our channel. You know, I never understand why people don't subscribe because it's really no skin off your back, you know, and I've really enjoyed, you know, talking with her. She seems to bring in interesting people like me, of course. I'm just plugging myself. But why not subscribe to her? You know, I don't know why
Yeah.
you would.
I interview some really interesting people, like you said, all kinds of boats. Some people are going around the world. Some people went around the world, got pirate stories, got all kinds of good stories. Got people that won the races, you know, the different races. Even some famous sailors have been on here.
Nice.
And even like people who just go local, you know, just sail around in their own area. So we got a little something for everybody. But
There are
thank you
people
for
like
that.
me that are loco.
Yeah. She's loco and a world traveler. So, okay, so you went to the Panama Canal after the Sandblast Islands.
And this is another good story. I'll try to make it as quick as possible,
No,
but
no, please.
I had three crew members on board. One of them, actually, all three of them had been in the Caribbean on board. So I thought, man, these guys, you know, they're tried and true, and they'll be fine. And so they got on board, and we went through the canal. We set sail, and we made about 200 miles offshore sailing. And I went to crank the motor up and put it in gear, and bam, 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 all hell broke loose. And I had some work done on the boat when I was on the hard in Panama, and I couldn't do the work because of my broken ribs. So I hired a guy to work on my boat, which I very seldom ever do. And he replaced my cutlass bearing on the propeller shaft. And he didn't use case hardened steel bolts. He thought he'd put shiny stainless steel bolts in there. Well, stainless shiny steel with lock washer nuts don't hold.
Oh,
And
really?
I really didn't know this, but so when we sailed, the prop was spinning the whole time for the first 200 miles, and the bolts all fell out except for one. So when I cranked the motor up, all hell broke loose. At first, I must pick something up off the, must be something in the prop, you know. And so jumped over the side, props clean, get back in, crank it again, and blah, 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 and all hell broke loose. And then I figured out the problem. So I bolted it back together again, cranked the motor up, and that vibration cracked my exhaust manifold. So when I cranked it up, water's just blasting all over the place.
That's the elbow. Is that the
Yeah.
elbow? Yeah.
Yep. So I put a patch on that the best I could with big old hose clamps. And what had happened was, because of that crack, it allowed salt water back in the motor, and the motor was locked up.
Right.
So I'm out there, I pull the injectors out, get the water out of it. No, the water got in there before I fixed the elbow, before I knew that there was a break in the elbow. And I fixed the, I pulled the injectors, got all the water out, put it back together, cranked it up. That's when all water started blasting all over the place. And
I had that happen before. That's why I'm shaking. I'm going, yep.
yeah. I was done. So we cranked the motor up because there was no wind to sail. It was a full-edged storm. But we had to motor back to Panama now, and we had no motor and we had no wind. So I tied the dinghy off to the side, called hip tie, and cranked the motor up and put the gas tank on the boat so I could keep filling the gas tank up. And the dinghy pushed me back 200 miles to Panama, where then, to make this long story short, I had to put a new motor in the boat.
Oh, wow.
So in Panama, we stopped for about a month, 6 weeks. We got turned around really quick, got the new motor in, and just before the day before we're getting ready to leave, we provisioned the boat with all this food. And the day before we were leaving, I was feeling under the weather, and I was in the back sleeping, and I hear these people whispering on my boat. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty nice. They're not wanting to wake me up. They're letting me sleep. And then I get up and I find out they packed all their gear. They stayed around through the whole process, new motor, everything being done, and said, we're not going. We don't trust the boat.
Oh.
We don't trust the captain. We don't trust the boat.
Oh, no.
They said that to me. I said, well, I got only one thing to say to you. Get off my boat.
Here's your hat. What's your hurry?
Yeah. So they ended up getting off the boat. And there's this guy on the dock next to me, Adam. He's my buddy now. He's in Australia. He's 26 years old on a 26-foot boat, solo sailing across the South Pacific.
Mm.
And I'm like going, all right, this guy is more than half my age, less than half my age, however you want to say it. His boat is half the size of mine, and he's going to do this by himself.
What's his name?
Adam, I can't remember his last name, but I got to get you in touch with him. He'd be a good one to interview.
Yeah.
But
I'm trying to think if I talked to him already, but I don't remember. I haven't had Adam.
He's from Canada. He's from Canada. I can't pronounce. I don't remember how to pronounce his last name. It begins with an S, Sadler or something like that. But I thought to myself, I've got 10 times the experience this kid did. He had 3 years sailing, and I said, I'm doing it. I'm going. And that's, I can almost promise you, if he hadn't have been on the dock, I probably wouldn't have solo sailed. I probably would have waited, found crew, because 4,000 miles, that's a big undertaking. So, but the fact that he was leaving, I'm like, man, I can't let this young kid show me up. And I took off and I went, and
And is he okay?
Yeah. Well, I finally caught up with him in Tahiti.
Oh.
And I buddy boated with him because I suffered some PTSD from my crossing, and I didn't.
Oh
think
yeah,
I
you're going to
could.
tell us that story.
if we
So
have
let me
time.
set you up on this. Let me set you up. So he's like, I don't know if you want me to tell this story because nobody will want to sail. I'm like, no, we hear them all here on the Salty Podcast. People need to know what can happen, right?
Yeah. Well,
So hit it.
all right. So let me go to the story. I'll just go right to the punchline.
Okay.
Anyways, but I have people my whole life, especially doing Boy Scouts. I do, what is that, 6 times 12? I do 100 scouts a year for
Yeah.
4 years, 400 scouts. They all ask me the same question. Have you ever been scared?
Yeah.
And I always say, no, I don't get scared. I never have. I just, I might be challenged. I might be cautious. I might be on edge, but scared, that's maybe different names for it, but I've never been scared. I was
My
scared.
answer is always, I respect it. I know something
Yeah.
could happen,
Oh,
but
yeah.
you take all the precautions you can. It's a risk reward,
Yeah.
and it's not
Yeah.
like I don't have 5 ways to ask for help,
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. So, anyways, I had another guy after the fact ask me if I've ever been scared, and that's when I realized that yes, now I have been, and
Okay.
I don't know if you ever. I'll tell you real quick about this one guy that asked me that. He was a master. I heard a story of Dr. Wayne Dyer one time took a trip on an airplane, and he says, I'm going to talk to this guy throughout the whole trip, and I'm not going to say a single thing about me. I'm just going to ask him questions about himself. And the whole trip, he just asked him questions constantly. And if the guy asked him something, he just turn it back around and put it back on him. And after the trip, they interviewed the guy, and the guy said, he says, well, what do you think about that guy that you're flying with, talking about Dr. Dyer? He says, he's the most interesting man I've ever met in my life. And
And
he
he
never
didn't
said
know anything about him. He was
nothing.
just listening to him.
He was pulling information from the guy and listening to him. And I think that's a big lesson to learn, that, if you're ever in a situation where you feel uncomfortable, if you just ask somebody a question about themselves, you're no longer, the spotlight is no longer on you, and you can be
Sure.
comfortable in any situation.
Yeah. It's an old idea, try to get out of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, he asked me if I'd ever been scared, and he pulled it out of me. And I had this shirt on this friend of mine got me, and it says "Soul Survivor, Badass of the South
I
Pacific."
saw those. I saw the
And
shirt that you have.
yeah, so it was pretty cool. But so this guy started asking me, and he says, here I am. I was standing there looking up at this mango tree. I just love mangoes, and he just stopped me and says, you never know. You're just sitting here looking at a mango tree. Next thing you know, you're in this big old conversation. But so anyways, back to the South Pacific. So I I, I had almost 3,000 miles under my belt at this point. Some things happened, nothing major along the trip, and I'm solo sailing it, and then past the Galapagos, and I have about 700 miles to go. And my autopilot started kicking out. It started malfunctioning
Mm.
about 3,000 miles, and so about maybe even sooner than that, it started just failing. And being a solo sailor, you got to have autopilot. You can't.
Absolutely.
This. Oh, you can tie the helm down. You can throw a bucket. I heard all this freaking things you could do after the fact, and oh, you should have done this. I'm like, dude, until you're in 10 to 12-foot seas with
Mm-mm.
25 to 30 knots of wind, don't tell me how you're going to throw a bucket off your port side and steer your freaking boat, because it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
I
You
not
know,
heard the bucket one.
oh yeah. Well, one guy, and I like this one guy's idea, but even rigging it would be almost like this. You take your spinnaker pole and you put a bucket on each side, and then you can use the spinnaker pole to steer your boat. I'm like, 10 to 12s, it's hard to even hold on to the back of the boat,
Yeah.
stand back there, much less, anyway. So I heard all the stories, and so anyways, I'm underway with the autopilot, and it's braking. Finally, it shut down completely. So I'm hand steering.
Mm.
I haven't hand steered Pampero from the day I put my autopilot on in 2018. If I'm driving into a marina, I'm using the autopilot. You know,
Oh, really?
I'm just spoiled. You know, it's just I just don't even steer the boat anymore. It's just like so much easier. You know, you don't have to just stand there and watch where it's going. You just got the autopilot on. You want to turn, you just turn the dial. It's so much
Right,
easier.
right,
So I literally hadn't hand steered my boat. I mean, with the scouts, I make them steer it, you know, to practice and learn to sail and that kind of
right.
stuff. But when I'm on the boat, I don't think I've sailed a mile in 5 years without the autopilot. So what that did was, I didn't realize it. When I put my autopilot in, I had to cut this big piece of steel out of the way for the ram to go through there. And then I rebuilt steel up over the top of it and back down again. And I had to restructure the whole quadrant back there. And this one was on a pulley that was on that quadrant. Well, in those big seas and that big wind condition, I was really stressing the steering out. I had to hand steer. Well, that caused the cable to come off of the frickin' pulley, and it just got wrapped behind it and just discombobulated. That's a sailor term. Discombobulated the cable because it was running off of the pulley on the bolt that goes through it or whatever, and destroyed it. It just completely destroyed the cable. I tried putting it back on. I'd get it back on. I'd tighten it all up. I'd go through this whole process. I'm in 10 to 12 foot seas now, just getting thrown and pitched and rolled all over the place. And
Yeah,
I'd be
that's
putting
not
this
the best
tape.
part of sailing.
So I'd get it back on, and it would last for about half a turn of the wheel, and it'd come back off. And it wasn't being fixed. Well, at one point, I'm trying to put it back on, and I had the autopilot on, but it was intermittent. And all of a sudden, the autopilot came on, and it crushed my hand between the quadrant and the steel, and the ram just kept pushing, and it about cut my hand right in half.
And you're in the
And I'm
middle. You're in the middle of the Pacific.
by myself, pinned to the quadrant with my hand, screaming bloody murder that you could probably hear 700 miles away on shore.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it ripped the whole top of my hand off, and you could my hand, I've got a video of it. I've only shown it to a few people. I sent it to my doctor when I was out there, but you could see my tendons moving in my hand. It was like Terminator. And so now I've got this injury on my hand. I'm starting to break out in a cold sweat. So I come up in the cockpit. I'm standing here holding on, and I'm just sweating badly. And then all of a sudden, I notice I'm peeing myself, and I didn't even realize it. And I realize I'm going into shock.
Oh
And
no.
I'm like, holy shit. I'm not a medic, and I don't know about what happens when you go in shock, but I said, I know I have to recover myself. So I laid down on the cockpit here, and I just started trying to calm myself and breathe. I didn't even realize I was, that far gone. But when you pee yourself, you don't know you're peeing yourself. There's something
You're just
wrong.
like, what's
So
going on here?
I'm like, oh my God. So I sat there for I don't know how long and just focused on my mind and breathing and relaxing and breathing. And then I finally got better to where I felt like I was okay. And I went down and I got this huge first aid kit. It's
Right.
massive.
Yeah.
But you know what's not in there?
What?
Sutures or uh,
Butterfly.
butterflies.
Oh no. Why not?
I don't know. I was like, are you freaking? I went through the whole thing. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? My doc sits and set me up with freaking everything to numb it, to sew it up, to, everything I possibly need. But there was none of that in there. So I had to duct tape the thing across to
Oh,
pull the skin
duct
back
tape.
over.
All right.
Yeah. So I pull it back over, and this was my main goal, was infection in my hand. I'm 700 miles adrift out to sea, and if I get an infection, this
Yeah.
could be the end. So, and then through my not thinking correctly and being all discombobulated, Somehow my bilge pumps got turned off.
Oh
And,
no.
and I had a problem with being in these big seas. The waves were crashing over the back end that I put on. And there were some drill holes through the back stern of the boat. And the back end was filled up with water, and the water was coming in. And I had, a huge amount of water in the bottom of the boat. And I had this friend of mine that was, I was communicating with him. My Starlink wouldn't even work. The boat was thrashing around so much. Starlink wasn't working. And also, I didn't want Starlink on because the amount of power it took to
Right.
and I knew I needed every battery power I needed. I didn't need to have Facebook, so I shut it down, and people started freaking out because they
Yeah.
couldn't get a hold of me. But I shut that all down. And my buddy, I told him, I said, listen, reach out to U.S. Coast Guard, reach out to Polynesian Coast Guard, call whoever you need to go. I want you to have the correct number and the procedure to go through in case I have to do a Mayday. I mean, this is the
Yeah.
closest I've ever felt like,
Well, at
Mark.
least tell them where you are in
Yeah,
case you need to call them and it needs to be quick.
yeah. Well, they had my tracker. My tracker was on my Garmin tracker. They knew where I was, but I was like,
Well, I mean, tell the Coast
what?
Guard where you are.
Yeah. You
Tell
need to
them
know
there's
how to
a
get a hold of me.
potential issue. Yeah.
Yeah. I need you to know who to call. I don't need you calling information when I'm getting ready to sink to find out the number to who to call. So he said, okay, I'll do that. So the next morning I wake up and I'd built an emergency bilge pump and hose to pump the boat out because my bilge pumps weren't working and I didn't know why. But I still had battery in my lithium battery. So I just wired it and started pumping overboard. And I finally got most of the water out.
So you had an additional, because I have an extra pump on mine too,
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
a
I have a spare
long
pump.
hose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
was making hoses fit. Now I got one hose that just never happens, but I was, and it got to a point that I was in such a situation. It was like, okay, we have to do this in steps. First, get the pump. So,
Mhm.
that might take me an hour or however long, and I get the pump. Okay, now you got to get the wire strippers. Get the wire strippers. Okay, now I laid on the sole of the boat, while I'm doing all this, and then I get up, do a little bit more, and then I go lay back down, and I finally got it all rigged and this, that, and the other. But then I called my buddy and I said, hey, I just want to make sure you got a hold of the Coast Guard who to call. He said, Mark, when you told me you're sinking, I told him to come get you.
Oh,
And I'm like, holy crap, you can't do that, man. The captain of the boat's the only guy that can do a Mayday, you know? And I was like, I'm like, no. And I said, call him back. And so he called him back, and Polynesian Coast Guard wanted to talk to me. They weren't going to call off they rerouted a 650-foot tanker
my
like
God.
100 miles away to come
Woo.
to me.
Oh,
It'd been
no.
underway for like 4 hours heading towards me. And I had to, first I got a landline that wouldn't go through, and I'm texting through my Garmin, and he made me repeat 3 different texts. Tell me your name, the name of your boat, and tell me you're calling off the rescue. So I had to do that like 3 times, and they called it off. And now I'm glad I did. But at that time, I'm like, Mark, what the frick is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Are you this guy that's going to go down with your ship? Are you so freaking stubborn or whatever it is that you can't just say, okay, I'm done, And so I finally got it together. I found out that I had turned my battery switches in the wrong position for the bilge pumps to work.
That's what I was going to say. What? And so they weren't broken. They were just, yeah.
Just stupid, but I was so not myself.
So this is
It
after
was
the injury. You're still a little not
yeah,
yourself.
I'm still all messed up.
Mm.
And on the morning of me laying on the floor, I mean, I had to lay on the sole boat. I couldn't lay anywhere else. I'd be thrown out of a bunk or whatever. I'm 10 to 12 foot waves, and the back end is slamming and the waves are hitting, and I'm like, is the back end of my boat gonna fall off? The all those naysayers, were they right? And
Oh yeah,
and
because you extended your
yeah.
boat.
So all these thoughts are going through my head, and I'm on the floor of the boat, and then I get a text through my Garmin, and I had a router, Tom Wargo, and he was with me from way before the beginning. He started following me, and then he became my router. He's my IT guy. He helped me with the computer and all this mic and all this stuff, and he would find out where I had to go to check into customs. He'd give me all that information,
Oh,
every
that's
place I
nice.
went.
Yeah.
Oh, he was so awesome. I get a text from Tom, Mark, this is and he and I have fallen out because he's like, Mark, just lash the helm down. I follow sailors and they they do it all the time. Just lash your helm down. I'm like, I got 700 miles to go. I can't. It's not gonna work.
Yeah.
This was before the
700.
this was before the steering went out. This was just, without autopilot. I'm like, I can't make it 700 miles without autopilot. I can, but I'm going to be sleeping for 8 hours going every which way. And then
Yeah.
I'm up to stay sailing.
Yeah, it'd be hard to sleep. That's for sure.
Yeah. So anyways, I get a text. Tom died that night of a heart attack.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like,
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Mark, are you nuts? I mean, this is affecting other people's lives now. What you're doing, when it's just me, I'm like, it's just me. But
Oh,
that
you
hit
think he had a
home.
heart attack because he was worried about you?
No, I honestly
That's
don't.
what
And
was going through your mind.
at the time it was, I knew that he had some problems and they didn't know what was wrong with him. I knew that it wasn't, ultimately my situation that caused it at all. I might have helped it along. I don't know, but yeah. So that was on my plate,
Did you
and then
know about it that night?
I didn't know it was the next morning when I, was going through all this crap that hit me, and I'm like, holy crap! I mean, how much more can you put on my plate?
How did you know?
His wife texted me.
Oh,
My Garmin InReach.
yeah, right.
I can still get messages from, and so I was like, this is another point. This was the lowest point of my whole life that morning on the floor, and I'm like going, dying would be easier than what I'm going through right now. I don't know if anybody's been that hopeless, but I
Yeah.
had no steering. I had, I'm 700
Completely
miles.
uncomfortable. You're uncomfortable. There's just no way to relax in those kind of waves.
I'm like, holy shit. But, I know I would never take my own life. So I knew I had to endure it. There was nothing else I could do. And then so I started, I tied the rudder off with ropes down below. And so I could get it to hold, I could hold a course. I couldn't hold a course in the direction I needed to go, but I could hold a course 90 degrees off of the direction I needed to go.
I'm trying to picture you tying off the rudder.
So, the rudder quadrant that the cable runs over.
Yeah.
Do you have a cable type?
Okay, so underneath my seat is okay.
So they call it a quadrant, and there's a cable that goes one way and there's a cable that goes the other way if you have a cable steering, and those cables go down over rollers and come up to the helm and go to a chain.
Okay.
That's how it turns the steering.
So you figured something out.
Well, I figured out a way that I could go north or south, but I really need to go west. But anything was better than sitting in those 10 to 12s, not going anywhere. So, and I saw from Adam was ahead of me by 10 days, and he kept posting how he had no wind. But my wind charts were saying he had the same wind I had, but he was in the doldrums. So I'm like, my wind app is not telling me correctly. So if I go north, I think I can get less wind. So I sailed for about 3 days, and everybody's going, Mark, there's nothing to the north. There's nothing to the north. I'm like, I don't care. I got to get out of these big waves and wind. So I finally got to where it calmed down a little bit. You know, it was still blowing, but it wasn't, 10 to 12s and 25 to 30 knots of wind. And so it calmed way down. At that point, I was able to work on the boat better. I'd had a few days, of rest and recuperation.
How was your hand?
My hand seemed to be fine. It didn't. I had spraying it with antibiotic constantly, and then I also the strange thing is this doctor was on my boat on a charter, and she says you need to get Manuka honey on your boat, and I'm like, okay. She goes, that is the best thing ever. And I had it on the boat because I bought it like 5 years ago, never used it. And then I'd spray it and keep it covered all the time, but it wasn't really healing. That being covered just kept it all gooey. And so then finally I put the Manuka honey on there and quit covering it, and it scab over. I mean, I had an inch of gap with no skin, and I'm like, is it going to grow new skin? What's going to go on here? But
Let's
eventually
see it right now. Hold it up and so I can.
there's not, you can't see much of it right now, but for not getting stitches, it, it doesn't look that bad. I don't know if you can even really see it.
I see it. Yeah, I see it.
And
Yeah.
all this right here was exposed.
Yeah, I can see it. It's a strip, a little strip. Wow.
Yeah. So anyway,
this is real stuff. So what can we tell people? Lesson learned. You gotta make sure you have all your stuff in your first aid kit.
First aid kit. You can't have enough backup stuff on your boat.
Right.
If I would have just had one cable, I could have, easily have fixed that. I ended up having to rig something. I ended up getting my steering back when I got to calmer water. I took the 4-inch grinder and cut the old cable off. I had to take that section out that was all wadded up from being off the steering, but now my cable's this much too short, so I ended up using a turnbuckle underneath the steering to extend that cable, and I tied that constantly throughout the trip. And I did that like every hour. I went down to make sure it was still tight because I had 700 miles still to sail to hand steer. And so I finally got that fixed, and I started sailing. I'd wake up as soon as the sun came up, and I would steer towards my destination. But you can't steer 24/7. You got to sleep. So then at nighttime, I'd lash the helm down, and I could do about, instead of doing 90 like I was doing when I had the helm tied off by the quadrant, I could now do about 70 degrees off of the direction I needed to go. So I would make about 10 miles throughout a whole night in the direction that I needed to go. But the boat was at peace. It wasn't being thrashed around. And if anybody ever tells me to heave to, don't you know about heave to? And I'm going to punch them right in the mouth because, I've served cocktails and chicanery boards and heaving to. And I'm like, I'll just slap them right across the face. Because tell me, and I had one guy tell me, I've been in 10 to 12, and how many times have you done that? Oh, I've done that all the time. Well, you're an idiot. Who wants to be in 10 to 12 and heave
on purpose? Yeah.
We were talking about that, the keyboard warriors. But
right,
anyways.
right. Yeah.
And sorry for you sailors that, I'm not saying you can't heave tow, and I'm not saying you don't know what you're doing. I'm just saying I'll just slap you. Anyway, so I could sail throughout the night, and every night I got in a routine. I was so fatigued and wore out, and I just needed to relax. I'd make myself a rum drink, and that's when I realized that sailors drink rum, because once I got everything lashed down and I was going off in the wrong direction, I could make me a drink and I could fall asleep, and I could sleep, and get my rest. And then when the sun came back up, I grabbed the helm and I sailed 700 miles making about 80 miles a day, and then
Oh,
sleep
wow.
through the night, and then make another 80 miles, 60 to 80, whatever it was. And it took me, I think I did it in 10 days. I did the last 700 miles.
And
But
that
just to
was
finish up the
recently.
story,
That was recently.
yeah, that was July last year.
Okay. So where did
So,
you end up after the
so I
700?
ended up in New Cahiva in the Marquesas. And another thing that I'm just going to reach out and slap anybody if they send me the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young song about, I brought Beam Reach to Papery, Southern Cross song. I used to love that song, and now I say, yeah, they wrote that song before they got to the South Pacific, because the South Pacific is a beast, and that's why there's so many boats for sale in Tahiti. These people, gonna sail around the world and buy their boat in California, and they cross the South Pacific. And as soon as they get to land, they jump ship and leave it behind.
So tell
Because,
me, why is it such a beast?
well, there's I don't know what they call them. I think there's a name for them, but so for at least 14 days straight, at least minimum 14 days straight. This is even before the catastrophe happened. You've got 20, the trade winds on a beam reach, they sing about, you've got 25 to 30 knots of wind, beam reach, 10 to 12 foot seas for 2 weeks. I had to put sheets up my cockpit because wind will wear you out. I mean, just the constant blowing on you will tire you out. And it was that for 2 weeks. Once I got my sheets up, I could relax, and I could tell my energy started filling up, and I was in better shape because the wind was killing me. But it's not. You have to be reefed. You can't. Your sails might be perfect for 25 knots wind, but 6 times an hour, it's going to jump up to 35 knots.
Oh my
I
gosh.
mean, just out of nowhere. I mean, you know what it's like when a storm comes and you see the storm coming and you prepare for it, and
Mhm.
but you don't see a storm coming. These
Wow.
winds just come out of nowhere, and you're just being slammed with 10 knots of wind. So I was reefed, for 14 days for higher winds, and it was sure enough 6 times an hour, and they only last for about 4 or 5 minutes, and then
6
it's
times an hour.
and I don't even know if people even talk about that, but it was
I haven't
it
heard
was
it.
it was brutal. And I tried to, because I thought somebody said something about it and they called it something, but I haven't yet to figure out what the name of that is. But I mean, until the catastrophe happened, it was still a amazing experience. I mean, I being a seasoned sailor, it was the feather in my cap, that I'm glad I solo crossed the South Pacific, because, there is no rewards for sailors. There's no that boys. There's no, you did good and we rate you here. It's just, you're just
Well, you
another.
get followers.
Yeah. Getting followers because you almost die. I don't know if that's,
Well,
that's a
speaking of, let's give you a little plug here. So, your Pampero, say it, Pampero,
Pampero. Yeah.
life.com.
PamperoLife.com.
There's a
Yeah.
way to support Mark on his sailing adventures. If you go there, I think it's, what is it, like a GoFundMe or
Well,
something?
it's there. My router Tom, he was the one that came up with that website, and we were selling T-shirts and
Yeah.
doing all to raise money, and to tell you the truth, I don't really push it that much anymore, because I have friends that help me with that. I've got a guy and a woman that have a garage full of T-shirts that have to go to the mailbox and ship these stuff, and you know and I'm so thankful that they do this for me, but that's a lot on their plate. And I've
You
gotten to a
don't do
point
like
where,
a Spotify or something?
what's that?
You do like a Spotify, they do it
I
for you.
I know I need to. That's one of my next move, and I'm not trying to tell people don't send me money, but I don't really feel I'm in the right place for that right now. I need to get my website set up so it does go to a company that is in business for shipping single items. And that's the next thing on my plate once I get to the Philippines to get that set up.
Right. Okay.
Well,
Yeah. Well, I'm okay with plugging you. You don't have to plug you. I'll plug you. So there it is again.
if you want to go to your website and order a book through you, that would be very
Yeah.
beneficial.
Go into the description of YouTube, or I don't think it's in Instagram, but it's in Facebook, and you can order his book off the grid. So what's the story with your Facebook being Cody.Jacks?
Well, in my prior life, before I got back into sailing, I had a bar restaurant.
Okay.
And my son his name is Cody Jack Reinhardt, and so I named the restaurant after him. It was a seafood oyster bar, looked like something built straight out of the Keys, and I did that for about 4 or 5 years.
Okay, that explains it. Okay. Yeah.
Because I used to, my Facebook page used to be just got another fly.
You're not cleaning up. You're just doing a little cleaning while we're on the podcast.
Yeah, I'll just do some cleaning, and anybody that knows me knows I'm lying about that.
Okay, so you went to the Marquesas first, and I'm gonna pull it up. And where did you stay in the Marquesas? I just interviewed somebody that was there.
Well, Nuka Hiva. The first island I went to was Hiva Ora, and that's where a lot of people go and check into customs. But the anchorage was so still violent. I mean, I was anchored and the boat was rolling and pitching, and I was still so discombobulated. I just left. I couldn't even stay there, and I found another island just like 30 miles away, and I pulled in this super secluded, pristine little anchorage. I think there was one other boat there where
Which island was that?
I don't remember the name of it. It's right next to Hiva Ora, and it's got like 3 bays you can anchor in. It was beautiful, and I just laid there for like 5 days and had a deep program. But I seriously had some PTSD, and I didn't even realize it at the time, But after the 4 or 5 days of recovery, I decided to sail to Hiva Ora, or Nuka Hiva, and it was only like 70 miles away, and I was scared to freaking death. I was just like,
wow.
I knew I could do it in a day. I didn't have any autopilot, and I knew I could do it in a day. And but I found an island halfway there, so I wouldn't even have to make the whole run of 70 miles. I could just go 35 miles and drop anchor. And I did that, and then I did the last 35 miles. But I was messed up. I just didn't even realize it. But yeah, I couldn't even do a simple little passage like that. And so when I got to the thing that really kind of I remember is when I got to Nuka Hiva, there's a guy there that does it all for you when you come and check in. You just meet with him, and he does all your paperwork, and then he takes you to the. And he says,
handler.
Well,
kind of like a handler.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So he says, well, you can do this yourself. I said, no, I don't want you to do everything else. I don't care what it costs. I can't even think, I was like, blah. And he got me all checked in and all this. And then I went back out the boat, and then I ran into him again a little while later. That looks like Nuka Hiva. I was in that bay right where your cursor is. Right there is where I was. Yep.
And it was at nice and calm.
Yeah. It was still a little rolly, but not bad at all. So I think that's the bay. Pretty sure it is. Yeah.
Yeah, there's all kinds of restaurants here and everything.
Yeah. When I was talking to him on the phone, he says, if you look to the east, you just look for the so and so dock. And he was getting all frustrated with me, and I'm like, you don't even know where I am. How do you know if I look to the east, I'm going to see you? You know? And it took me forever to find him. I finally found him, and but then after about a week, I ran into him again, and I said, he goes, man, he says, you seem to be doing a lot better. I said, was I acting a little weird? He goes, dude, you were I could tell you were messed up. And he says, but let's face it, you just sailed 4,000 miles, you know, and but there was a little more to that story. So
So you got someone on here. I'm going to bring them out. Let's see who this is. So do you know him?
that's the Bud man. Everybody hold on. Jeff Bud, you're online.
Oh,
You're
my,
live on the Salty Podcast.
Mark Reinhardt, man, I cannot. This is awesome. I don't know how you figured it out. Hell, I don't know how I figured it out. I'm glad I'm here, though. This is great.
So tell them about your experience. Jeff flew into Nuka Hiva and sailed to Tahiti with me.
Oh.
He doesn't want to tell that story.
I'm just glad I didn't get. When you sent me down there with the. I had to come back up for the knife because that rope was wrapped around that prop so tight. I was like,
Oh.
and we had just left the place where they were filleting, the fishermen at the docks were like cleaning the
tuna.
fish and throwing the guts in the, and these freaking sharks were, they were devoured. They were abnormally large. And then we're like only 200 yards out. And he goes, hey, Jeff, I need you to go down there and pull the rope off the prop. And I'm like, I'm not a free diver. I can hardly hold my breath, for 30 seconds. And I'm down there.
Let me throw this in here real quick for a second. Whenever a situation like this happens, I know that Jeff's going to come out of that water with his chest poked out, feeling like I'm the man. So I really wanted to give him this experience, is why I asked.
I was terrified. Those sharks were bigger than I was, and I figured, man, at any minute they're going to sneak up behind me and take my leg off.
Oh,
I was like panicking. I had to go back. I said, I need a knife. So I had to go back up, get a breath of air, and say, Mark, man, I can't do it with it by myself. I need a knife. And he gives me the dullest knife in the fucking box. Excuse me. Sorry. And I'm sitting there. And finally that thing comes undone, and I'm still have my legs and my arms and everything. And I'm like, it was crazy, man. I was like,
didn't you feel like
what was it? Was it like a crab trap, or was it your anchor line? What was it?
I don't remember how that happened. I don't remember.
You just knew there was a problem, and you said, I think I got a rope tied around the.
We must have picked something up when we were motoring, because I had a little vibration in the cockpit.
But it was the coolest experience. I'm so glad I went. I'm so sorry I was so sick, but it was an experience. I never ever dreamed in my whole entire life that I would ever go to Tahiti ever. And when you said, hey man, I'm like, hell yeah. And it was what a wonderful experience, man. It was so awesome. I really thank you for inviting me, and I probably would never do it again. No, I'm just kidding.
You would never do it again. I know you wouldn't. He was sick in the front V berth for 5 days.
Well, where are you right now?
Some people just are seasick,
It was the traveler's diarrhea was one. If that wasn't bad enough, then the Pacific Ocean is not for wimps, bro. Them freaking waves were, and Mark's just calm as a cucumber, and I'm like, it was horrible. It was horrible. I'm sorry. I wish I was more help.
All right.
He goes, why are you below? That's the worst place to be. And I'm thinking, well, if you think about the physics of it, and there's 1,500 pounds of ballast down below, and you're up high, and it's moving like this, and I'm down low where it's hardly moving. I said, leave me alone. I can hardly get to the toilet. And then,
well, where are you? Where are you?
Now, Right now I'm in
Orlando.
Orlando, but that's true. You just never know where I am. I could be in Navarre or Pensacola.
He's all over the place.
Generally, I'm going to Cedar Key to see a music festival on May 2nd through the 4th. You should come.
See, Jeff is one of the reasons I threw this adverse situation on that changed his life. I don't know if the better or the worse, but he helped me with. He was one of the originators of my shirts, and he's the one that made the Soul Survivor shirt. He took it on himself, and
the
so
badass of the Pacific.
And so
Those are nice shirts.
Yeah, he was so supportive of me that I wanted to pay him back, and little did I know it wasn't really a payback.
No, it was. No, seriously, It was. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I never dreamed. It was so awesome. Thank you very much, man. I never dreamed I would check that off my list. That was cool.
It's a pretty cool podcast, huh?
This is amazing. I don't know how you figured all this out. This is amazing.
How long have you been on the podcast? How long have you been on the podcast?
6 seconds. I was out with some friends. I'm sorry.
Well, you'll have to watch the
podcast.
I've never been on a podcast before. This is
He
really.
thinks it's your podcast.
Say that again.
That?
He thinks it's your podcast, Mark.
Oh, this isn't my podcast. This is her podcast. She invited me.
Oh, it's brilliant. Oh, this was a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going over. It's usually an hour, but I'm just like, we're just going to roll with it.
No, my friend said, "You're not on." I said, "No, I just got home." And she said, "Well, he's still on." Susan, she goes, "He's still on." I'm like, "Really? Okay, I got to figure this out." And I said, "Help me out, man. I've never done this before." It was great because I could see you were struggling in the beginning before Captain Tinsley came on, but now it's like, dude, I'm down. They would do this more often, bro.
I used to do a FaceTime live happy hour back when we were on the same times schedule, but now, being this time thing, if I have a happy hour on board at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I want to reach out to somebody, it's 2 o'clock in the morning back home. So
yeah. So you have to start drinking early in the morning.
I had a beer. I had a beer today for this podcast. That's 11 o'clock. That's pretty early for me.
But I admire you, Mark, because there's a lot of people that follow you and want to keep in touch. This was a great idea, and the time change is very problematic. I don't know how you do it, but I think it's great. This is wonderful. And thank you, Captain Tinsley, for facilitating this. It's a wonderful thing that we can connect. He's half a world away, and this is live. Can't get over it.
Yeah, I saw him posting some salty posts, and I was like, I got to meet this guy.
He's a trip.
She contacted me like a couple weeks ago, and yesterday was such a horrific day on the water. I woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning, and the Solomon Islands are difficult to find anchorages. I mean, you can have a beach and a half a mile reef in front of it, and it drops straight off to 600 or 165 feet. So finding a place to drop your anchor that's not right next to a reef is difficult. So I found this place. I drop anchor. Everything is good. I'm in 50 foot of water. And then a storm picks up and swings the back end of my boat right towards the reef. And I'm like, this is not a good place to be. So at 1 o'clock in the morning, I pull anchor.
Oh, my God.
I head over to where I am now. Well, the rain started. And
tell me where that is. I'm going to pull up a map. Where is it that you are in Solomon Islands?
You said the rain was torrential.
Do you have a AIS marine tracker?
I do. How do I pull that up here, though? Okay, so
pull up marine tracker and put in Pampero. And I used to have my Garmin that was always on, but it friggin' broke.
There's so many boats out there that are coming up. So
name Pampero?
No. Let me pull this up so we'll look at it.
If you put in search Pampero, you'll find me. I'm across the way from that. Head north, right from that big island where you're come back a little bit to the east, to the right, with your cursor. I'm right in there somewhere. Yep, right in
Off
there.
this big island, Santa.
Yep.
Okay, let me
I'm
see if I
on
can. Pampero. Is that it?
Pampero. Is there more than one?
Yeah, that's in Greece.
Must be another one.
This is amazing. This is
Sailing vessel. Well, it says
There you
French. I don't know if that's in Italy. There's other Pamperos.
Well, that's not cool.
There's only one salty abandon. Okay,
There's a
this one. There we go.
Yep.
Wow.
There we go. You're right there.
That's where I left from. It hasn't updated.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
let's see where that is on here.
That's where I checked into customs.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm on the southeast end of that island. So I've got, what's that right there? Is that a boat? No.
Somewhere in there.
You're right in there?
I think so. Yeah.
That looks like a nice little place. Hell yeah.
Actually, I'm up above that just a little bit. Here. Can you see that?
Wait, let me
Oh, it's just a little ways north of that.
oh, right there. Okay.
Ah. Yeah.
Okay, let me put this up again. We're not worried about time today.
All right. Well, right now I've got so my itinerary is I've got to work my way all the way to the western one of the western islands and check out a customs here and get my exit papers, and then I'm going to take off and depending on the wind, I'm hoping to make it all the way to the Philippines. It's 2,000 miles without stopping for fuel again. But the wind is not real favorable. It's like until I get to the top of Papua New Guinea, there's like very little wind. So, and
You're
it's
going
about
all the way to here.
2,000 miles with no wind?
my range is 1,500 miles
With
since
gas?
I put the new motor and prop on. So I've got
So
about
this is,
1,500 miles.
look at this. I love to do this. So here's the Philippines, and you came all the way from.
Oh my.
Yeah, I'm almost halfway around the world.
Oh my God.
From here,
Yeah.
Panama. Oh my God.
Yeah.
When
I'm
you
about, I think I'm like 7 or 8,000 miles from the Panama Canal.
this is right here. Okay, so this was his first stop. So he went all the way from there. Isn't that incredible?
Well, he went about 1,000 miles out of his way accidentally,
Yeah.
by accident, and survived.
And you're not there yet. You're French Polynesia. You're not all the way to the big. So then you went all the way up here, and then you're gonna go up here, right there, up
Yeah,
to.
I would go straight towards the Philippines, but I still worry a little bit of my mental state of being that far offshore. So I'm gonna leave there and I'm gonna stay about 100 miles off of Papua New Guinea, which is the next biggest island you see there to your
Mm-hmm.
left. And so
Can you
I'm
go
gonna,
around this way?
yeah.
Okay.
And then, but if I went straight from where I am and went a little bit farther north, there's wind. But I'm not,
Not too keen on that right now.
no.
Is there any way to get through here?
Yeah, I could go on the ends. Yeah, I could go down through there. but there's even less wind down there, so I can still hit islands all the way to the top part of that area there.
Look at this
And,
trench here. That is amazing. How deep is that?
I'm not sure. There's a lot of deep water in the Pacific, up to 15,000 feet deep.
And you're going to go all the way up. Are you going to stop anywhere and along the way?
I don't think so. The only reason I'm going to stop is if I need more fuel.
Okay. And where are you going after that?
Well, the Philippines, I'm going to be there at least a year.
Ah,
I'm going to haul the boat out of the water. I've got so many repairs to do to it to make it back 100% ship shape after this long crossing. Some things I want to do. I want to put a wind vane on the back of my boat. This is
oh,
something that
good.
all world cruisers freaking have a wind vane. And I used to think, I already got two back. I got a backup on a backup. I got my cable steering. I got an autopilot. And
Yeah.
come to find out, the reason my autopilot failed was it leaked the hydraulic fluid out of the ram.
Oh,
And my router, Tom, and two other people told me it was a sealed unit and couldn't have been, you can't add fluid to it, which information was wrong. I'm not blaming Tom for that because I had two other people that reiterated that. And so I didn't even
did you
try to
ask
add
Chat
fluid to it.
GPT?
What's that?
Did you ask Chat GPT?
No, I didn't. I didn't even know that was around then. But even the manuals said, and I searched it myself, said you couldn't add fluid to it. Well, now, and I added fluid to it. I bought a new ram also, but I added fluid to the old one just to make sure it worked. And I had vegetable oil on my boat. I could have just taken the nut off, dumped vegetable oil in it, gone on my way, and not had that whole thing happen to me.
No
You
way.
know, but everybody was saying it can't be done, and I didn't even investigate it because I was like, oh, everybody says it can't be done. And but I bought a new ram, and before I put the new ram on, I'm like, I'm gonna check this thing out, and I took this nut off the top of it and hooked a funnel to it and added hydraulic fluid to it, and it worked like a champ. I could have done that and just, but then I wouldn't be sitting here telling you all this great story.
That's right. No,
But,
and you got plenty of ammunition for a couple other 2 or 3 books.
Or a major
this,
motion
this,
picture.
Yeah.
so I actually finished my second book before I crossed the South Pacific, and my editor told me that I need to put this story in my book, so I had to
It
write
would
this.
make a good movie.
I had to write this whole thing in the book, so it's actually in there.
Wow.
Okay, so you're going to spend about a year in the Philippines getting everything ship shape again.
And
And
then
if you're like me, you don't plan too far in advance, but you must have
uh,
some idea of what your route's going to be.
I don't even, people always ask me, where you go next? I said, I don't plan the next island until I get to the island I'm going to, because you never know. Somebody might say, oh, you got to go over there, man. That's the coolest place I've ever been. And then whenever you have an itinerary that you think you have to stick to, it just doesn't work as well, So the Philippines is a year mainly to, I want a little break from the boat. I've been on the water since 2016.
Yeah.
I haven't slept in a bed except for in case I was visiting, or whatever. And so I'm going to spend a year in the Philippines
On
working
land?
on the boat, just
You?
getting everything right. And then,
Are you going to get a job?
What's that?
You have to get a job?
No job. I'm going to,
We're not having that.
hopefully my second book will kick in. My first book did really well since 2016. It's amazing. I still get checks. I'm like, it blows me away. I mean,
That's awesome.
it's not retirement money, checks, but and believe
It's
it or not,
saving money.
I get checks from Facebook too,
Yeah.
which is, I was like, are you kidding me? The first time I got a check, I'm like, holy crap, Facebook messed up. There's pay money in my PayPal account. I hope they don't figure it out what they did wrong. And then it started increasing every month. And I'll tell you exactly how much it was. It wasn't huge, but it got up to $250 a month, which doesn't suck for doing something I enjoy doing anyways.
That's all.
But then it dropped back down. Um, I think I have less content to be putting in. I'm not pushing it as hard as I did. When I first got my first check, it was like 60 something dollars. I'm like, I'm gonna work at this and see what I could do, you know. And I pushed it hard for a while and got up to about 250, and then it just never got any higher. So I think I kind of lost interest that it was going to be my retirement fund.
What was your secret to get to reaching $250 a month?
You know what? I have a friend of mine that pushes his Facebook hard, and he tries to get friends and followers. And he called me up and says, "Mark, tell me your secret." I said, "I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea why it started paying. I was shocked when it started paying. I didn't know they even paid, you know." And then I started. They have this thing that you can, the professional dashboard that you can start hitting goals on.
Yeah.
And so I started working on that, and but I haven't worked on that in a while, and that's probably why my money dropped off. But that's became too much like a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I get a little Social Security money, and hopefully my second book will kick in, will help me with my repairs over the next year. And the Philippines is so cheap, you know. I can hire people to help me, you know, with the work. I want to redesign the whole bottom cabin down below. I want to rip all the benches out. I'm just, you know, I'm going to be one of those guys that takes a sawzall to his boat, and people hate me, you know. But this is my end game boat, and I'm going to make it the way I want it.
I want like a couple of captain's chairs down there. Take one settee out on one side and put a couple of captain's chairs with a sliding table for my computer. I'd like
That's
to
exactly what I'm doing. That's
make
what
it
I'm
more
doing.
comfortable. Yeah.
I'm putting 2 lazy boys in.
Yeah.
Lazy boy type, you know, not
Yeah.
really lazy boy. But I'm putting one on the port and starboard side. So if I'm heeled over this way, I can sit in this one. If I'm heeled over the other way, I can sit in that way. And I'll have me a coffee table next to each one with all my plugins for my phones and everything, and you know, have
I want
fans.
to put up a little sliding
those
table
chairs.
just kind of moves over, and then, you know, I want to
Yeah,
make
I
it
know.
real comfortable.
That's it. These boats are so uncomfortable down below. They got these bench seats, and you know, I got to sit all straight up, and
Yeah.
like, so that's my goal, is to make that comfortable. And I'm gonna make a place to hang clothes. I don't even have a place. This shirt was hanging behind a hook on my shower door, you know, and that's the only place I have to hang something. You know, it's just ridiculous.
Well, it's a pretty big boat.
Yeah.
So you should have some storage. You got no place to hang,
But
but you don't have any hanging lockers.
But the thing with the storage on this boat, everything is like in hidden dark cubby holes. You know, you pull the back of the couch out, and there's these holes that you shove crap in. You can't ever find what's in there.
That's
I'm
true.
ripping all that out. I'm gonna put cap drawers in and get it all organized. And because, you know, if you're not organized on a boat, you know, I lost the frickin' blender to my magic bullet. I haven't found it in 2 years, and it's on here somewhere. I know it is.
Yeah. It's not even worth it. I'm just gonna buy a new one.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got all these cans of chickpeas. I was gonna make what's that? I can't even think of the name. What's that stuff?
Margaritas.
Chickpeas.
Yeah, you make what's that dip? I've lost it.
Hummus.
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 Yeah. So I was gonna make my own hummus with the chickpeas and all and the bullet, but I got all these chickpeas and no blender. I tried mashing it up with a fork. It doesn't work.
You got some other fans down here that I'm gonna bring out.
All right.
I love you, Mark. I love you, man.
See you, Jeff. Love you too, brother. What's up, guys? You guys have hung in there, huh? Who do we have on?
We have Lisa Ford and Natalie.
Lisa Ford. She's always up late. I see her on my Facebook when everybody's asleep. I'm sure Lisa's got some things to say.
And we have Susan also, Susan Ives Ward.
Yeah.
Lisa's off camera. She's like hiding. Come on, Lisa.
Come on, Lisa. Lisa, we got you on camera now. How are you doing?
Y'all tell us why you follow this guy. What's the big deal?
Good question.
Oh, you
I
got to turn your mic on, Lisa. You got to turn your mic on.
Because I've known Mark since I was a little kid.
Really?
Yeah,
Tell us the story about Mark when he was a little kid.
that was too long. I don't think there are any stories. Are there?
Oh,
Do you
no,
remember
my brother and Mark were best buds back in elementary school, and they played gray Y football or something like that together.
Yeah, we lived. He lived one street over from me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how
So
many?
I've known Mark my whole life, but I hadn't seen him for 40 years until he started walking the walk.
So you
The
saw
walk
him
to
on
Key West.
Facebook. Say, this guy, I know this guy. He's sailing around the world.
At that time, I was
Well,
walking to
he
Key
was
West. And
walking the
she's like,
walk at
"Who's
that
this
point.
lady?"
Yeah, that's right. Doing the walk. Okay.
Yeah.
So
And
for
I
most,
lived in the Keys. I lived in the Keys, and I invited him to camp in my backyard if he needed to.
Which I never made it at that time.
Right.
I forgot about that.
so there are a lot of your followers women.
I think so, and I don't I don't understand. I think it's because I hate to put a slash towards the guys, but I've reached some enlightenment in my lifetime, and I think women are more in tune with their own emotions and thoughts and things of that nature, and
All
and I
right.
and I think that is what resonates with some women. I think, wouldn't you say, Lisa?
And a lot of us went to school with you. I mean, you've got a lot of people from where we grew up that follow
That's
you. You
true
know,
too.
they.
Yeah, I don't really know why it's I don't know.
What about you,
Sometimes
Natalie?
Susan Ward, she's a good friend of mine in Florida. She got me hooked on him.
Oh, okay. She's hiding from the camera.
Yeah, I think she is.
There she
There she
is.
is.
Yeah,
Susan's
right. You look great. Come on now. Give us your.
Susan's been so helpful. I used to write a captain's log all the time. I'd write a daily captain's log of what was going on, and I'd send it to Susan before I put it out there because
Oh,
people
okay.
got
She's
used.
the one that proofread. Okay.
Yeah, people got used to me not knowing how to spell and properly use there, and there are and yours and all those things, and so she kept me pretty straight for a while.
Yeah, I tried. I
He's got a lot
started
of support.
following him. Pardon me?
He's got a lot of support.
Yeah,
From
he does.
I really
What
do.
got me was he was a friend of mine from school, and I just kept seeing these beautiful images and sunsets of Key West. And I lived in Key West when I was young, very young, and my father was on the water all the time down there, and it just reminded me of what I grew up in for about 5 years when we were down there.
Did you grow
And
up
so I
there
just
in the 70s or in the?
I actually in the 60s. I
Oh
was
my!
we lived
You
there
could
from
tell some
about
stories.
60
Wow.
probably about 64 65 to 70, but I was very young. I was like 3 years old when we moved there, but I do remember going out on the water and all the boats. My dad was the commander of the Naval Air Station there,
Yeah.
or the Naval Air Ordnance Unit or something like that, in Key West. So he had the pick of the boats, whatever he wanted to take out for the day. And we always did that. But I just loved his sunsets and stuff. And I call myself the first person that bought his book off of Amazon because I sat up until the crack of midnight and pushed the button, pushed the button, pushed the button until it let me clear my, buy it in my cart. So I always say I'm the first purchaser on Amazon.
You
But
were.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I say I am. I
Have,
mean, I don't know
have I
anybody else
signed?
that's made that claim.
I haven't signed that copy yet, have I?
No, I still have it here. I was hoping I might be able to hook up with you when you come back in the fall.
Yep.
Somewhere between Jacksonville and Key West or whatever. You're coming to Orlando a little bit, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that neighborhood with Jeff. I've
Around
got to meet
September.
Jeff face to face. So,
Wow, you got to be my most loyal follower from back when buying the first book till now and still hanging
yeah.
in there. That's
Yeah,
You
I was
impressive.
gotta get him to
yeah.
sign. That's
I know. I know. Yeah, I followed him before I got the book and I got the book um and I yeah, it's been a long time.
Didn't you?
2016.
Did you work at Disney at that time?
Nope.
No,
No.
somebody
I've
else I'm
been
thinking of.
retired the whole time since I've been dealing with you. I left work. I quit work when I was 49 or 50 to stay home with my mother. But Mark's book helped me get through a lot of that too. Just reading his book
Wow.
by her bedside. Yeah.
oh,
So,
that's awesome.
yeah.
Mark, you're really helping people.
He's
You know,
awesome. He's very inspirational.
when I wrote that book, I had no idea the impact it was going to have on people. You know, I just was telling my story, and it's been so rewarding. When anybody ever asks me, and they say they're going to write a book, I said, "Man, you got to do it." I said, you know, especially if your message resonates with people, because I get emails all the time because my email address is in the book, and I get people, you know, telling me stories of how much the book meant to them, and it's just
That's wonderful.
it's so rewarding. It's more rewarding. I mean, the finances has helped me over the years, but it's just so rewarding hearing people's stories and how grateful they are and reaching out to me. It's awesome.
So how long are you going to be in the Solomons?
Probably not that long. It really depends on the wind. If the wind was blowing, I'd leave right now. But it's going to take me at least 3 or 4 or 5 days to get to the checkout point. It's a couple 100 miles, and since the wind's not blowing, I'm not in a big hurry. I'm waiting on the wind anyway, so I'm gonna just take my time to get to customs and check out. And then after I get checked out customs, I might hang out for another 2 or 3, 4 days. If the wind doesn't start picking up by then, I'm just gonna take off and start motoring.
And you think you're going to go nonstop to the Philippines?
If the wind doesn't blow, I'm gonna have to stop and get fuel. I
Right.
don't want to. I mean, there's a pretty good chance once I pass Papua New Guinea and I'll still have just a little bit of fuel that I can make it the other 1,000 miles to the Philippines because the wind is steadily blowing up in that area. But I don't want to risk that. I don't want to be have 1,000 miles to go and be low on fuel. So I'm probably going to have to go 100 miles or so out of the way to top off my tank. So
Well, so is there any good places to see on I don't know anything about Papua New Guinea other than what I've seen, on
well,
TV.
tell you the truth, I have a
Palau.
little phobia of Papua New Guinea because up until recent years they were still into cannibalism,
Oh, okay.
That's
and
comforting.
I
not
knew they
not
were
that
pretty
they
primitive there. I knew they were,
yeah,
Let's
and
skip that.
not that they still do, and not that they would want to eat an old bull. They'd probably prefer young calves, but I just I don't know, just when you're in an anchorage that you've never been at before, and it happens all through the Solomon and Fiji and everywhere else. I'm anchored next to some island with a tribe that lives there, a family of first, second, third generation, and they all live in this tribe, and they don't have electricity. They're not modern, and they paddle around in their dugout boats they made out of tree trunks, and the thoughts go through your mind. You hear the drums a banging.
wow. Yeah, because you're a rich guy to them.
Oh yeah, you know they come out to the boat constantly and ask for stuff, and they want to sell you coconuts. And I've had some great experiences with a lot. I mean, the last island I was at, the youth just swarmed my boat. I had 20, not 25. There's probably 10 to 12 kids, and I'm playing Michael Jackson, and they're dancing in their canoes, and they're
That
having
was
a blast. And
Yeah,
then
I've seen some of those videos.
and then the island before that, they all came out in my boat, and I let them come on board because the dad was there. And they came back the next day, and I fed them all. I cooked 2 chickens and a bunch of rice and beans, and they brought me 12 coconuts, and and
oh, that's
just such an awesome experience, and the dad, he's a fisherman to support his family, and I had so much fishing gear because when I took off, I provisioned this boat with everything you could possibly imagine. And after 2 years, if I haven't used it, I'm like trading it off. I'm like, here, man, I'm not trading it, but I'm like, here. I opened my tackle box. I said, what can you use? And he was just, it was amazing. Something that the whole mess that he took cost me $20. You'd think it was life changing to him. So
you're
it's amazing.
Well, this has probably been my
Can I interject
longest
something here?
podcast. What's
What's
that?
that?
Can I interject something here?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
I'd like to toast you, Mark, and Captain Tinsley. Thank you for doing this. And here's to you, Mark. We have had so much fun following along with you. And everybody that's watching this right now, it's happy hour for us. So we want to toast you. Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. I wish I had
Cheers,
something
baby.
to toast you with.
You're awesome, Mark.
I was
We all
trying to
love you.
catch you before you finished your beer.
Yeah, I wish you had. I just I left one in the freezer from a day or two ago, and I said, you know what? I'm not gonna make a rum drink, but I'll bring this beer up and I'll drink that.
Well, I'm gonna take everybody off the screen now except for Mark. So
Okay,
then we're
Guys,
bye.
gonna wrap it up.
hey guys, just one more thing before you go. I really appreciate each and every one of you. I mean, I read, I try to answer every comment everybody makes, and it makes me not feel alone out here when you guys comment and you like and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So thank you very much. I appreciate
You
it.
know that he
We love you.
wasn't supposed to give this link out, so you guys he gave
I put
you the wrong link, so that's how you ended up in here.
Well,
We don't
We'll
mind
send us
being
the right one next
backstage.
time.
That's not true.
doing that.
I
We'll
did that
do
because
it again. We'll do it again.
Please
All
do.
right, I'm gonna take y'all off now.
Bye.
Okay.
you guys.
That was cool. Yeah, you gotta have all your fans here. So yeah, this is 2 hours and 13 minutes. It was probably what 10
Wow.
minutes of technical glitches, but 10 minutes or so. But thank you. This has been awesome, and I want to catch up with you again. I've done multiple interviews with people as they're going around the world, and I definitely want to have you back on. Hopefully, I won't have another technical issue there. But
Yeah, maybe after I've been in the Philippines for like 6 months and
right,
working on the boat.
I want to hear about the trip from there over to the Philippines and hear about what you end up doing if you get an apartment or what are you going to do? That's a trip.
I think I definitely want to get off the boat, because that's part of the
I
whole
get it.
reason of putting me on land. And you can get a Airbnb in the Philippines right on the frickin' water for $600 a month. So it's
Yeah.
I'm
Do you
looking
think
forward
anybody will
to.
come visit you?
Oh, I know they will. I know people are already reaching out and want to, come
Oh,
hang.
what's his name? I just see Jay Budman. What's his name?
Yeah, Jeff Budd. He's
Yeah,
definitely
he's saying he wants to come out there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
All right.
he's the
If you're
keeper of
gonna
the
go out
party
saying,
spot. So,
I mean, what the hell? I mean, I would love to come visit you, man. That would be a Philippines halfway around the world. Are you kidding me? Who would say no to that? If you're down, I'm down.
Yeah. We've already talked about that.
well,
Yeah.
it sounds like it's cheap enough to stay there. So why not?
Okay.
Yeah.
Just let me know the date so I can book it.
Yeah.
Well,
Right now, I
he's not
don't
living
know
life by the
anything.
calendar.
It depends on the winds. You know what? That's my question I wanted to ask earlier. It's like, if you're looking at burning fuel because the wind is down, I just don't understand the rush. What is the rush? Why can't you just wait for the winds and go do what you like to do, sail? Why do you have to burn fuel?
Well, first off, you can't sail if there's no wind, which I like to do. But you know what? And I hate what I'm about to say because somebody said this to me once, and I thought you were so tainted, because he said to me, he says, after a while, it becomes one more pristine, deserted island with palm trees after another. and I
Not
thought
necessarily.
you are so. I can't believe you even said that. I said,
Look at the people you
how?
met and helped and built,
Oh no, I have enjoyed all the experiences for
and they
sure.
enjoyed it. And they're never going to forget you about the man from America.
Yeah, but I got, my boat is my life, and I want my boat to be ship shape, and there's so much wrong with it right now. Just not not logistics of like the motor and the props and the sails and the rigging and all that. That's all good and strong, but just the awnings that are ripped. This awning's missing from this side because it got all tore up in the winds, and when it rains, it just pours in the cockpit because the awnings aren't here. And it's all these things that just have turned my lovely lifestyle that I've designed to be comfortable into difficulty.
I get it.
So I really
Yeah.
want to get there to get this boat back in the shape I want it in. So,
Understood.
and once I get to the Philippines, I mean, my gosh, once the boat goes back in the water, I've got Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia,
I'm going to have to
you
come back.
know, Bali, all these places I didn't even know existed before I
Yeah.
started researching them. And now they're just a skip away. It's no 4,000 miles to get to them. It's, Thailand from the Philippines, I think is 750 miles. And, once I hit Thailand, I think I'll be exactly halfway around the world. That's another reason I want to go there. But
Oh.
So how do you get over to if you're up in the Philippines, how do you get to the Indian Ocean?
I think you have to go through the Suez Canal, but I haven't really looked at it that intensely. And I'm not sure. I'm
You
going
got to
to.
get in there first. Let me show you.
The only reason I want to go all the way around the world is just so I can say I went all the way around the
I
world
get it.
and put that feather in my cap. But I'm not so
Amen.
sure. I'm not so sure. I'm not going to just spend the next 5 years up in the Philippines and Thailand and Malaysia and Indonesia and you know
So
I don't
see,
know.
this is what like you've got the Philippines, and then to get to the Indian Ocean, you got to come out somewhere.
Oh, yeah, I'm not going that far south. So that's my problem is I've never really I don't really investigate too much farther than I think I never really investigate too much farther than where I'm going next.
You can just pick it up and take it over land. There's got to be some way to get through here.
Oh no, you can on the bottom part of Thailand, you can cut through between Thailand and
Right
wherever
through
that
here,
is.
or
Yeah.
okay. Well, all right. So
And I've heard that the Indian Ocean is one of the most awesome downwind sails there is. So,
but this right here is a little questionable, this area.
yeah, I figured by the time I get there, that'll be all straightened out.
I don't think so.
You know, you don't think since
This
we're at
right
the end
here.
of the podcast,
Oh, well, it might be. Okay, I see what you're saying.
you don't
Okay.
think Trump will have hotels over there on the Gaza Strait by then?
Yeah, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. There is a change. That might
Won't
get
go there.
cleaned up. I'm with you. I'm with you. All right, so we're
And,
gonna catch up with
you know,
you.
it's kind of like people said about COVID when I started to leave. They're like, "Oh man, you know, all these countries are locked down and blah blah blah. I'm like, by the time I get there, it's all going to be over with. And
Yeah.
it was.
All right.
Hopefully,
Jeff, I'm going to pull
it'll be
you
the
up
same.
again. Sorry.
Hey, Jeff.
All right. So, Mark, it's been a pleasure. This has been fun. I'm using my phone as a camera because my expensive camera quit, and I'll figure that out later. But sorry for the technical difficulties, but it's been a lot of fun.
Can is there a way to say goodbye to everybody and then you and I chat afterwards to go over a
Yeah,
couple things?
sure. Yeah. So say goodbye to everybody. Say goodbye. Tell
All
them to please go to Salty Abandon and subscribe.
Yeah, definitely subscribe to their channel because you'll get, for no other reason, you'll get to see me again at some
That's
point. No,
right.
I'm just kidding.
And if you look
But,
above my head, you can see at Salty Abandon at all those places. But this will also be, it's going to be the longest audio podcast that I have. I'm also above your head. You can see that it's also on the audio side of things, anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeart, all those places. You can also listen to the Salty podcast. So
I can't
please,
believe we've
y'all,
been on here.
subscribe. And one more thing, this tonight's sponsor is me. I'm Tinsley Myrick, Remax of Orange Beach, and I sell Gulffront condos. And let's see, where's my?
I bet I have followers in Orange Beach.
I lost it. Anyway, Tinsley Myrick, Remax of Orange Beach. There's the email. I've been selling condos, Gulffront condos down here in Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, Perdido Key, Florida, since 2003. So I know what I'm doing. I'm good at it. Pays for the boat. All right.
All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, it's 2 hours and 22 minutes. It's definitely the longest
Crazy.
podcast I have, but it's a lot of fun. I'm glad you accidentally gave out the link. And I'm gonna end it now. And the way I end them all is Salty Abandon out.